Alright, so we're going to be working on the Volvo again today, and what we're going to try and do is replace the inner and outer tie rods in the car. So recently, and from my other video, I've changed out both the front and rear struts and shocks, as you can see. And basically the problem I have now is that I try to get this car aligned and the outer tie rods were seized. Here's the parts that I got for it. So I got both the inner and the outers, and just gonna be replacing them both as a unit. Hopefully everything comes apart. So over here you can see the problem that I'm having is that this is the outer tie rod, this is the inner one. This adjuster is basically seized to the threads in the inner tie rod, so basically it just means you can't turn it, you can't adjust the toe. And if your alignment is far out like mine after I distrust, then you're gonna be replacing your tires from toe wear pretty quickly. It's the same story on the other side, so that's why I ordered replacements. There's also one more thing that you have to watch out for before you before you order parts for this car, is that this, I guess, chassis as a whole, the P80 platform, was supplied by two different steering rack manufacturers. One being TRW and the other being SMI. And this matters because when you're replacing or when you're ordering replacement parts, the inner tie rods are going to be different between the two. So how you tell that is you can do a couple different ways. First is the data plate here. You can see on the bottom right corner, you have a series of alphanumeric tags, and if your tag ends in a 5, I believe that means you have a SMI rack. Another short way to tell is under the car. So if you go under the car and look at the actual steering rack, and hopefully I can get this, is that on top of this nut right here, it says SMI for me. So just do your due diligence before you order any replacements, and then just to save you the headache down the line, because you don't want to take it apart and find out that you can't put it back together. And as far as the job is concerned, what I'm gonna hopefully try and do is just remove this whole thing as a unit. I'm going to undo this boot because I'm gonna be reusing that. Undo this nut right here. Punch this out with a hammer, and then after that, I'll show you on the new one. You can grab this with either a wrench or a pair of vice grips and turn it out that way. So let's give that a shot. So the first thing you're gonna do is get this pulled off here. So I think these are original and I don't have the right tool for this, so I'm just going to cut this off with a pair of clips and just zip tie it back on after. It'll be fine that way. That's what they look like. I already removed one side. Again, I just cut it. If you have this tool, which basically you just need a wrench that'll fit in there, or pliers, then you'll be good. I'm too lazy, so I'm just going to cut that off. And then you're going to undo this clamp here and slide the boot off so you could expose all the hexes, I guess, to pull the inner tie rod. So let's do that next. It's just about it for a move. I'll get it right now. All through. So now with the boot loose like this, you can see the inner tie rod there. And what I'm going to do now is loosen this bolt and then remove this from the steering arm. So, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this completely out, thread it back slightly, and then strike this with a hammer and hopefully knock it loose that way. Alright, so you don't want to hammer on this now because this is pressed pretty tightly into the spindle. So when this breaks free, it might fly up and hit something you don't want it to hit. So I'm going to thread this back in a few turns and then hit it with a hammer. Alright, there it is. Alright, so here's where I'm at with this. So I turned since last time I turned the steering wheel all the way to the right, just so that I have better access here. And what I've also done was I've attached a pair of vice grips to the inner tie rod. So what I'm trying to do is this part is threaded into the steering rack here. So I'm wanting to turn this off somehow. So I've seen some other people online where they can grab a part of the steering rack where it's like solder or something, and I didn't see it here. And to be honest, I don't really know what this green rack or green spacer thing is either. What I tried to do was I tried to shock this off. So what I've done was I applied the vice grips here, and I took my hammer again and I struck it here to try and break it loose. And it didn't take too much force. So I think some people online were worried that this might bend the rack, but this came off pretty easy for me. So your mileage may vary, I guess. So you can see this starting to turn. Now I'm going to put this down for a second. Grab it again. And after you get a couple turns started, you should be able to just twist it off by hand. So So here's the tie rod that I pulled versus the one I'm going to put in it. So now what you're going to do is before you install the new tie rod, you're going to want to roughly compare and set the new one to kind of where the old one used to be. So I'm going to actually pull the boot off here, so and I don't really see any other way other than cutting it right here. But anyway, that'll be after. But basically what I want to do is compare how these two are sitting and just adjust this so that it's about the same length, so the alignment won't be too far off. Of course, you're gonna have to get it aligned, but you don't want to be obviously driving with your wheels towed in and out too much from what it was before. So try and get it close, and I would suggest not to put too many miles on it until you're able to get it alignment. So yeah. Here's where I'm at right now. And I think that's what I'm going to do. So now I'm going to just lightly apply pressure on this jam nut here so I can, lock the setting in for now. And install this back on the car. And also before, and like I said before, you guys should just get new boots. That's another place I kind of regret cheaping out on, but what I'm gonna do is I'm going to cut this right here with an angle grinder so I can reuse this boot. So, yep. Always wear your safety glasses when you're using an angle grinder. And be mindful of where you think the sparks are gonna be thrown also. So you don't wanna throw a ton of sparks into your car if you like it. So. Alright, so it kind of looks like that now, so I'm gonna see if I could break this off with a hammer. There it is. So now you can pull the boot off it. Again, just buy a new boot kit, but it's too late for me now. So that's gonna be really hot. Here it is. Okay, where did my clip go? So now, grab the new tie rod, pull the boot over it. Sorry. So actually, you should have put the boot on it before you lock this in place. And because I don't really have a reference anymore, what I'm gonna do is count the threads. That's another way of doing it. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 threads before the jam nut. So that's what I'll be using as reference. So now this is ready to be installed. Alright, so now I'm going to install this back into the car, and to tighten this I'm going to do the same thing that I did with the vice grips. And it's going to be pretty tough to get a torque reading on it, but I just try and feel it out to what you thought it felt like when you break it loose. Also, what I'm going to do just as an added precaution is I'm going to put a bit of Loctite on here, so just to reduce the chance of this backing out. Okay, so So it's started now, so I'm just going to use the tie rod, and you could move the hub out of the way to finish or get this hand tight. On this and just and now so now I'm going to what am I gonna do actually? Okay, so I'm going to move this boot back into its position. I'm going to center the steering, put this boot over it, put a zip tie around it so it stays secure, and install the steering knuckle back in. So, and remember, it goes in this way. And another thing to watch out for is, in this case, does not have a grease fitting on it, meaning that it comes pre-greased. Some of them may have a zerk fitting on it. If that's the case, it wouldn't hurt to just hit it with a grease gun just to make sure that it's lubricated. But this one I don't really have to worry about it. So, and this is a bigger size now. I'm just going to hit it lightly on the low torque setting and then torque it down after. And this boot. This. Cool. And that's one side done. Alright, so we're back after a bit of a food break. So here's where we're at so far. So we replaced both the inner and tie rod on the driver's side. If this would get brighter. And we reused these boot and we put the clamp over it, and also a zip tie where the original steel retainer clip used to be. And now we're going to do the same for the other side, and hopefully that goes a little bit easier because I think there's more room for access. So another thing I'm going to do is, to make it easier, I'm going to now turn the wheel all the way left so I have more access to the tie rod. Alright, so we're basically going to repeat the procedure from the other side. We're going to first break this loose. We're going to pull this boot back and then use vice grips to undo the inner rod. Alright, I think I got it now. Mungkin Facebook atau itu boleh. Alright, finally, there it is. So we're gonna do the same thing and line up the tie rod and then cut him just like before. Alright, so we're back here. I've already applied some Loctite to the car, or not to the car, to the inner rod, and I'm going to thread it in. Can't really see with the light in my face, but and again, the torque spec for the lock nut on the tie rod is 52 foot-pounds. Now I'm going to put the zip tie over this boot again, recenter the rack, put the wheels back on, and we'll be done. With that, now you can lower the car and you are all done. Oh, don't forget to tighten this jam nut before you do. I almost forgot. So and we are done. Feels fine. We're gonna call that good.